Okay, the next item is the Wespath New Retirement Plan Overview. The chair recognizes Chairperson of the Wespath Board of Directors, Bishop Robert Snazy, and General Secretary of the Wespath Benefits and Investments, Andrew Hedren. Would you please welcome them?
Thank you, Bishop Beard. Hello, friends, and greetings in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'm heartened to see so many people in this room who are committed to the vital future of the United Methodist Church. We are driven to reclaim and revive and renew the United Methodist Church as we refocus ourselves on the mission and ministry of our church of making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. I speak today not just as bishop of the Rio, Texas Conference and the New Mexico Conferences, but also and especially as chair of the board of Wespath and on behalf of the board of Wespath. It's been my honor through this extended quadrennium to serve as chair of the Wespath board. Wespath is one of the 13 general agencies of the United Methodist Church. We administer pension, retirement, and other benefit plans for many of you who serve the church, clergy and lay alike, so that you can focus more directly on your work and on your ministry. Some think of Wespath as the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits. That is how Wespath is still identified in our current book of discipline, but we've actually been known as Wespath since 2016. The name Wespath honors John Wesley and reflects our agency's commitment to provide a path to financial security for people who serve the church in the United States and across the Central Conferences. The name Wespath conveys integrity, competence, and transparency. The General Conference is already, this General Conference is already officially voted through consent agenda to change the name from General Board of Pension and Health Benefits to Wespath in our next book of discipline. Wespath has been caring for Methodist ministers since 1908. Methodist, and they've been participating in some form of Methodist pensions for over 200 years. And Wespath will be serving the United Methodist ministers, churches, and congregations for many decades into the future. Wespath deeply cares about the future of our church and especially the people who dedicate their lives to ministry. Wespath's legislation for this General Conference is grounded in our mission of caring for those who serve, caring for those who serve. You may see some pictures of some of the folks who work with Wespath, a few of the many dedicated folks who support this mission. Wespath's petitions for this General Conference are designed to support the long-term sustainability of the United Methodist Church and its pensions program, and for a church that has changed so much even since 2016. The board of directors elected by the church has worked carefully in trying to balance in the new plan, equitable, affordable, and sustainable. The petitions seek stability, adequacy, and benefits, seek the stability and adequacy of the benefit plans for the over 100,000 people that Wespath serves around the world. In a few minutes, Wespath's General Secretary, Andy Hedren, will bring greetings and share his thoughts about how Wespath's petitions support the church. But before Andy steps forward, I want to share just a little bit about him. Andy is one of the most engaging and dynamic leaders I know. He is passionate about his work. He is passionate about the work of the Board of Wespath. He's passionate about the United Methodist Church and its future. Andy has served with Wespath for 20 years. This is his third year as General Secretary and his fifth time attending General Conference. Andy is widely known and trusted across United Methodism. Some of you will recognize him from the 2016 and 2019 General Conferences, where he was called to the microphone many times to answer questions about pensions, clergy benefits, and disaffiliation. Andy believes in the power of relationships. Meet him once and you instantly sense this. Get to know him and you'll know that he truly cares about you, your family, your church, your ministry. Andy has built strong relationships worldwide throughout the United Methodist Church, but his relationships also span beyond the United Methodist Church across a diversity of faith partners through his interfaith work on behalf of the churches and their workers. It is this broad web of relationships that provides Andy with a depth and breadth of perspective that is so important in this role as Wespath's General Secretary. As chair of Wespath's Board of Directors, I can say unequivocally that Andy was the right person at the right time to become General Secretary when our previous General Secretary, Barbara Borgergrain, retired at the end of 2021. Barbara led Wespath for 27 years, and it's just incredible the impact she has had directly and indirectly on the lives of tens of thousands of clergy and their family. Andy has worked with Barbara for 15 of those years and learned the ropes and under her competent guidance. Wespath could not be in better hands with Andy Hendren's leadership. Andy is leading Wespath into a new era, not only for this general agency, but more importantly for the United Methodist Church as we find new ways of being United Methodist, be UMC, and renewing our commitment to the ministry and mission of the United Methodist Church. We're at a crossroads, and Wespath has been and remains a steady, trusted, and balanced presence in the face of uncertainty and disruption. As our church finds a renewed sense of purpose and rededicates itself to making disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world, Wespath stands committed to its responsibility to be faithful stewards of your resources and for your well-being. Help me welcome Andy Hendren, the General Secretary of Wespath.
Hello, Methodist brothers and sisters. I am Andy Hendren. I am white, male, adult, proud husband to an English woman who will be getting her master's in social work on Sunday. And on behalf of my colleagues at Wespath, I want to extend our prayers for you as you discern the future of this United Methodist Church. If you're going to trust what I'm telling you about the retirement plans, you need to know a little bit about my journey to this stage. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church, and the Southern Baptist Church did not fit with my heart. I wasn't allowed to ask challenging theological questions, and it really made me not like church. So I had a friend in my high school whose dad was the youth pastor at the United Methodist Church directly across the street from First Baptist Church in Jefferson City, Missouri. Actually, in 2008 in Fort Worth, in my first general conference, I ran into Beverly Bomer as a delegate when I was fresh and new on Wespath staff, and she was the leader of that youth group. That youth group let me ask those questions. It fed me with United Methodism's ability to view Scripture through reason and experience. And at Lock-ins, they let us dance with girls, but it drew me in. In young adulthood, I was really essentially, to be candid with you, unchurched, and that lasted even into my early part of my career at Wespath. But the more I worked at Wespath, the more opportunities I was given to work with clergy across the denomination, conference treasurers, ultimately with bishops, the more I was drawn into United Methodist Church's vision of social holiness. The more I worked at Wespath, the longer I was there, the more I fell in love with the church. You know, like all of us, I've had moments where this church has let me down. My church has let me down. In the General Conference in 2019, there was a moment when there was a tough vote after a pretty vigorous debate, and everyone in the room was pretty crestfallen. There were a lot of embraces, and Bishop Sally Dick saw me and saw that I was really affected by that moment. She came up to me and asked if I was okay, asked if I needed a hug, and I nodded yes. And we embraced. And she asked me if I was United Methodist or if this was just my job. And it was in that moment that I realized that I am United Methodist, and it's more than my job. I found my faith through my work at Wespath. And that faith means a lot to me. So Wespath does a lot of work with the denomination across the entire connection, across the worldwide connection. We have a program for central conferences. Most of my time today, I'm going to talk about the United States, the U.S. clergy pension programs. But we have programs for the overseas conferences. If you'll bring up the next slide and maybe bring there you go. We have a few priorities before I turn to that for this conference. And those are the benefit plans legislation that I'm going to talk about. And really, it's about the retirement plan. The sustainable investments in paragraph 717, another calendar item that is woven into the benefit plans, and regionalization. To go back, if you would, a slide, I do want to talk about how the Central Conference program works, to distinguish it from the U.S. program. The overseas program was started by this conference in 2004 through a fundraising effort. We raised $20 million in over 2 quadrennia, and then we raised $5 million more. Wespath manages that account to support retirees in the central conferences. We support over 3,600 retired pastors and survivors in Africa, the Philippines, and Europe. I had a chance to travel to Mozambique and Zimbabwe last year, my first trip to the central conferences. And it was a powerful trip. These photos, a couple of these photos are from that trip. I went to Africa University and I met Dr. Magato and his staff. And we actually are trying to work with them on programs for the staff at Africa University that are not from Zimbabwe because they can't be in the state program there. But mostly, I spent my time, and I met with Bishop Niwatiwa and Bishop Nanala in their space and with their benefits officers, but mostly I spent time with pensioners and survivors, like Reverend Enose Letio here in this picture. I met him in a tiny village outside of Cambina, the United Methodist Mission in Mozambique, and he was 106 years old. 106 years old, born just shortly after Wespath, the Board of Pensions, was founded by this denomination. We talked. We had to use a couple people translating between his Shitswa dialect to Portuguese and Portuguese to English so that I could understand some of what he said, and vice versa, for me to talk to him. Even though we may not have understood everything we said to each other, we formed a strong connection. We sang a few hymns. He explained to me how much his small pension from Wespath means to him, how he uses it to buy prescription drugs, prescription glasses to read, and volumes of reading materials because that was his hobby, his favorite pastime. What it showed to me was it was a vivid, real-world demonstration of how much clergy pensions have meant to this denomination for 240 years. 240 years ago, in 1784, the denomination established the first fund for worn-out preachers. And I'm pretty sure they did it after the week of committee work at the General Conference. Bishop Stacey, as he noted, our focus for this conference is on the sustainability of the entire church. Our role in that is making the benefit plans sustainable and affordable, and also adequate for a good retirement. We've submitted a bunch of petitions, and most of them are on the consent calendar, and that's great. The retirement plan petitions are our main focus, and sustainable investments is another. Regionalization is a third, but this conference has already passed that. This is amazing. U.S. plans are governed by the entire worldwide church. We can't change a word of the plan, the retirement plan for U.S. clergy without this conference agreeing to it. Central Conference plans can change their plans to meet their context. Delegates from North Katanga don't have to vote on plans for the Philippines, but for the U.S. plans, everybody from North Georgia to North Katanga to the Philippines to Germany have to vote, have to understand what the plans are, and it absorbs their time. And it's not a very efficient use of the General Conference's time. I'd rather not be on this stage talking to you about retirement plans for a bit. And if we have this regionalization approach, we'll be able to amend the U.S. plans in a U.S. setting with people for whom the plans apply. So the main plan I'm focused on is Compass. It's kind of really switching from the current plan, which is called the Clergy Retirement Security Program, or CRSP. We like acronyms at Wespath. We want to close that plan. And in fact, this morning, on the consent calendar A03, you voted to close that plan. The second plan is a petition to replace CRSP with a plan called Compass. That's what I'm going to talk about a bit more. To understand a little bit about why do we want to shift from a pension program? Why? People ask, pensions are great. I've been told I should fight for my pension. I don't want to go to an account balance plan. That's like the corporate world. Well, we have studied the sustainability of the denomination, and we lament some of it. But if you see this graph here, in 1982, when the pre-82 plan was stopped and MPP was begun, there were 1,000 church-going, church-giving members for every retiree. 40 years later, in 2022, there are 200. 2023, there are undoubtedly fewer. There are fewer local churches, there are fewer church members to support the pension supporting retired pastors. Now believe me, the plans that we're closing are well-funded. I want you to understand that. But to make these plans sustainable for the long term, we need to shift to a different design. In fact, the delay of this General Conference from 2020 to 2024 has added several $100 million to the overall long-term liabilities, obligations of this denomination. It's shown here. The obligations extend into the next century, even if we close it today. They're funded well, but to keep adding, to keep extending that tail and adding more to the hump is hard in a church that's shrinking. And that's not unique to the United Methodism. U.S. denominations, Protestant denominations are shrinking, and we do lament that. But in order to ensure that the clergy of today have a solid retirement benefit, we need to shift to a new way of doing it. We want to make sure that the clergy who are called to serve will have a good retirement. But I'm going to start with what doesn't change. So if you're in the audience or if you're on the live stream and you're listening and you're concerned about what does this mean for me, if you are retired already and you're receiving benefits, nothing will change for you. A vote by this conference to close the old plan and start a new one will not affect people in pay who are receiving pension payments at all. You'll still get your checks from Wespath, your direct deposits, you'll get cost of living increases and all of that. If you're in active service and you already are accruing benefits, those are safe. They will stay in the plan that we're closing. We're not making it go away. We're not converting it to accounts. Those pension benefits that you've earned will stay for you. They will remain at Wespath, waiting for you in retirement with increases for inflation. You will begin in January of 2026 accruing benefits in the new plan, and those are all account-based benefits. If you're kind of in the middle of your career, you're going to have a foot in both worlds, and that's okay. You'll have a guaranteed pension of some sort, and you'll have this account balance that's more flexible on top of that. For young clergy, the plan will be their primary support. That's who will focus a lot of time on in education over the next 18 months. A compass is something that provides guidance. It directs you. It gets you to where you want to go, and that's why we named the plan Compass. The other thing that doesn't change is eligibility. Everybody who's eligible to be in CRSP in the United States remains eligible in the plan. Annual conferences, however, keep in mind, can change the eligibility for part-time clergy from year to year, and sometimes they do. So that can impact you. That can bring you in and out of the plan. If you're part-time and not eligible, you have other options. Your conference can cover you through other plans that Wespath manages, but just not the mandatory U.S. plan for clergy. We designed the plan with 5 values in mind. And those values reflect some foundational values of the United Methodist Church. We focused for supporting the church, a challenged and disrupted church, on sustainability and on affordability. We focused for clergy on adequacy of income and retirement, equity for lower paid clergy, and flexibility for a workforce that is starting to move in and out of ministry. We worked with numerous stakeholders. We didn't do this in a vacuum. We did it with the backdrop of what I just talked about, and we did it by engaging stakeholders from across the church. As we engaged our Young Leaders Advisory Board, our conference treasurers, clergy from various areas, we realized that this balance was going to be hard. It's not an easy thing to balance affordability with adequacy. So it forced us to make some trade-offs. And that's just to be candid with you. The effort to balance sustainability and affordability and income adequacy led to the new plan Compass, being slightly less generous than CRSP as a result. And that's just to be open and transparent. It's not quite as generous. And also to be transparent, it shifts risks. A defined benefit, a pension, the risks are on the church completely. In an account balance plan, the participant bears some of the investment return risks. But if they educate themselves, they can mitigate that risk. And if we, Wespath, and our partners in our conferences invest in education, we can mitigate that risk. But sustainability, that first value, again, that's focused on that the benefits will be comfortably funded when you retire, when your children and even their children feel called to ministry. Sustainability also means that we need to mitigate the unpredictable financial risks for a diminishing church. With regard to affordability, this plan is less expensive for local churches and annual conferences. That means more money can be put into ministry, what it also means is it may mitigate some of what we know is going on in the church, and that is appointment drift, appointing people to appointments so that they're not in the primary pension program. But affordability ultimately means that it's less of a burden on the church. Income adequacy. I'm going to talk about that. We designed the plan intentionally to produce a replacement income in retirement that is at minimum 75% of what a person earned in their active career when combined with Social Security. We also built the plan so that it produces higher replacement rates for some, particularly those in lower income thresholds. Studies show that 75 to 90% is adequate for comfort in retirement, but it also produces something that's more affordable for the church. Equity, another value that we're focused on. Equity is fairness. It's one of the fundamental values of the United Methodist Church. It's one of our connectional values. So with that in mind, Compass has several special features that help clergy at the lower end of the pay scale, including clergy who are paying seminary debt or undergraduate debt, clergy who live in parsonages, and those who may serve small churches, rural areas, underserved urban areas where income is lower. One such feature is a basic income, is a basic contribution that everyone gets regardless of their salary, the same. This actually creates a higher contribution percentage for those at the lower end of the pay spectrum. For pastors living in a parsonage, the value that we compute and use to determine retirement plan incomes will be increased under the new plan for those who live in parsonages. And that should help retirement security for those who will need to buy a home once they retire. Conferences will make a contribution on a higher rate of compensation. And then lastly, the plan also adds flexibility for participants. You have the opportunity to leave remaining money in your account to heirs after you and your spouse pass away. That's not the case with the pension program. Once a participant and his or her spouse passes away, the benefit ends. This allows a transfer. The new plan, as an account balance, allows a transfer of wealth between generations. That can also mitigate equity in incomes. Compass is also different than the pension program because it has, as I said, account balances. It's an account balance plan. That's different than a pension. Everyone owns their own account. You know the dollar amounts in it every day through our open online record keeping. That money is yours. So I will talk about why that matters in a lot for investments in just a little bit. But as I said, the remaining balances can pass. Also, account balance plans provide the same value for everyone, whether you live a long time or you pass away early, because that money is yours and it passes to heirs. In a defined benefit plan, in a traditional pension plan, people who live short lives, tragically, their benefit is actually less under those plans. So Compass builds a little bit on the concept of shared responsibility, and we've heard concerns about this too. The first portion of Compass is $150 a month for everyone in the plan. That's the basic benefit. And again, that's a higher percentage contribution for lower paid clergy. The church also makes a second contribution, 3% of the person's compensation overall. That's the second tier. And those two are for everyone. The church will make a third contribution if the participant also makes a personal contribution of his own or her own or their own from their paycheck. And that's up to another 4% of pay. So if you put in 4%, you get another 4%. You should get in 4 plus 3 plus 150. It's just asking clergy to be a more active partner in saving for their own retirement. And that's how retirement plans work for most lay people in this General Conference. Most of the lay delegates in the United States have plans that work that way. And some of the Central Conference plans work that way. They are contributory. Folks are required to put in some of their money. Compass has two special features that I kind of alluded to earlier. The number one is payments for student loans are counted as though you made a personal contribution from your paycheck. So if you pay your loan provider from your student debt and you tell us that counts, and the church makes a match on what you paid your student loans. So you don't have to pick, do I contribute to my retirement or do I pay down my student loans? You can pay down your student loans and get the contribution. Another thing that will help get us to a better future in saving for retirement is automatic enrollment. Clergy are automatically enrolled at the get-go, contributing 4% of their pay. They can opt out, but they're automatically enrolled. And we know there is a lot of inertia in our lives, and we're hoping that means people will get used to that. And it has automatic escalation. So each year, the percentage that's coming out of your paycheck goes up by 1% to a maximum set by the conference. That can, again, get people just through this nudge, as economists call it, to be saving more. So this important distinction with Compass is, again, that it's an account-based plan. It's just different than a traditional pension plan. A pension plan, like CRSP, pays a dollar amount for the rest of one's life. And to be, again, open with you, Compass doesn't do that. It doesn't guarantee lifetime income, and that's a big change. But we've tried to mitigate the risks of that as best we can. Compass has an innovative and award-winning managed payout feature, a feature that tries to replicate what a pension does with your account balance that you own. It tries to recreate the ease and security of a pension program. So you don't have to decide how much to take. We have an algorithm, a program that does that for you based on your age, your account balance, inflation for the previous year, and your risk tolerance. So you can kind of make it suit you. That will help your account balance last your lifetime. So it strives to live into the United Methodist commitment to lifetime income. But it doesn't create new long-term obligations for the church. It doesn't extend that tail of risk that was on the earlier slide. We've been fortunate to interact with many of you here, with many delegations, with many others in education opportunities, and we have heard some concerns. So Compass was published today in the DCA in the consent calendar A04 as a calendar item, but we have already heard that it has been removed from the consent calendar and will be debated on the floor as a calendar item. We're listening to the concerns. I think the folks who removed it from the consent calendar have some concerns about the equity pieces that I talked about earlier. And what I want to commit to you is that Wespath has heard this. It's important for sustainability that we get there, that we get this plan approved. Amending it on the floor of the conference is hard to do. This is complex. We spent 8 years designing this. But we want to be responsive to the church, and we want to hear you. So I will commit that our staff will listen and work and bring improvements to the 2028 General Conference if we need to. We know that this is a bigger problem than a retirement plan. We know there are pay equity issues in the church, and we know there are pay equity issues in our society. And a retirement plan, it's hard to solve those through a retirement plan. But we can make the retirement plan better. That's what our mission is. So I can only ask that you trust us in that. So account balances, again, in Compass, your money belongs to you. It doesn't belong to Wespath or the church in some big pool to pay you in retirement. It's your balance. If you leave ministry because you lose your call, you have flexibility to take and move some of it and start distributing it. When accounts belong to individuals, We know that 100,000 individuals, and these aren't all clergy. In Compass, they will all be clergy. But our investment programs, our investment funds apply to all of our retirement plan products. The retirement plan products that cover general agencies, the ones that cover retirement homes and children's homes and lay employees that work at local churches, and 100,000 people have 100,000 viewpoints. We invest in alignment with the United Methodist social principles, and we have, and we always will. But what I told the board, the search committee, when they asked me why I wanted the job, Bishop Schnase was on that committee, and they said, "Why do you want this job when there's all this disaffiliation and market uncertainty and shrinking of the church going on?" And I said, "It's because I'm inspired by the investment philosophy, by our sustainable investment approach. I believe that Wespath's investment approach is a real-world, living example of the social principles in action. We strive to make a difference." That's why I'm committed to Wespath's charge, not only to be a prudent steward of your assets, of the church's assets, of our institutional investors' assets. Being a prudent fiduciary, we need to seek to maximize returns. That's our number one charge in the discipline, meaning it's sacred, and it's our number one charge under secular law. But at the same time, I know and I believe, and we always have, and I think we can do even better at caring for our communities and the natural world through our investment approach. I think together we can use Compass and the accounts in it to create a sustainable retirement plan for our church, and at the same time use our investments to do good in the world. So we've worked hard over the years to be a thoughtful and engaged investor. I bring it up today because it is our responsibility to make sure these accounts grow so that everyone has a secure retirement for all the individuals in the plan. We're called in the first stead in the Book of Discipline to invest in ways that maximize returns. But we're also encouraged to invest in alignment with the social principles, including upholding human rights and protecting the environment. And let me assure you, Wespath shares the desire to care for God's creation. I share the desire to care for God's creation. And I share the desire, and Wespath shares the desire to care for the rights of all people. We're actively pursuing a transition to a sustainable low-carbon economy in the future by engaging companies on their carbon footprint and shifting investments to companies that are better adapting to climate risks. We're conscious that the shift to a lower carbon economy has risks, and most of the risks are borne by those who have the least, particularly regarding food security and access to electricity. So we want to pursue ways not just to transition to a lower economy, but to do it in a way that is just and equitable, that takes care of communities and takes care of people and takes care of workers. We actually engage companies frequently on human rights. In fact, I recently, in a public opinion piece in the Financial Times, called out the CEO of Mondelez International, the maker of Oreo cookies, he claimed that investors don't morally care about their businesses in Russia. But I said that we do care. I said he was wrong. We use a variety of approaches. We have 3 different kinds of approaches to making a difference in the world and making sure the investments get a good return. We don't see it as inapposite. We don't see it being a choice between divestment or engagement. We apply all of these to make changes in the world. We use a multi-pronged approach, 3 different pillars, we call them, for sustainable investing. They are to invest in a positive way, for making a difference, like investing in renewable energy, like investing in affordable housing. And these get market returns, like investing in micro-lending in the developing world so people can build businesses and build wealth. The second pillar is to engage. We engage companies as I just described. And then the third is to avoid. And we do avoid when it's prudent, when the investments we hold have risk, or when they are not in alignment with the long-held values of the church around alcohol, tobacco, gambling, pornography, private prisons, and weapons. We also exclude companies that have extreme financial risk, like thermal coal companies. We did that in 2015, like the Israeli banks that support the settlements, which we did in 2016. We agree that sometimes avoiding investments in certain companies or businesses can be an effective tool for reflecting our values, and we do so when it's justified from both the financial and church perspectives. This is what we call our selective divestment approach, and it's based on objective analysis and thoughtful examination. And for those who feel strongly about avoiding certain types of investments in their retirement accounts, this is the part that I feel is most in spirit of this conference. We have funds. We have created funds. They are called our social values choice funds. They are an option for participants to invest in, and they exclude fossil fuels, and they exclude companies identified as having higher involvement in human rights concerns. They're an option. They allow participants to align their retirement investments, their money, their account that they own, with their personal convictions. We intend to make those more widely available. We've announced already that this year we'll make them available to our foundation and other investors. And when Compass becomes implemented in 2026, those options will be available for every clergy person for all of the money in their plan. We know that some people want to embrace our thoughtful engagement approach, and we know some people want more exclusions for their values. And we believe that having the choice and making more options available, and we're listening and we're trying to make those social choice funds reflect more and more of the concerns of many of you in the church. We believe that that's the inclusive and the better approach to aligning investments with values. All of our funds will be invested in alignment with the social principles, but we will continue to build these funds for those who have greater concerns. I'm hoping that after years of conflict in the church, we can let people have options and agree to disagree. I'm going to wrap up with some final thoughts. It's been really good to be here. This conference, after 5 other conferences I've been to, is distinctly different. It makes me proud to be a United Methodist. I'm a member of Urban Village Church in Chicago, Illinois. It's a small multi-site church, very inclusive. And we really struggled through COVID. We worship in a stage play theater, and during COVID, there were only about a dozen of us coming on Sundays, or like kind of as we came out of COVID. We had moved right before COVID into a bigger theater because we had outgrown our space, and then we struggled. We got a new site pastor, Juan Pablo Herrera, and he has brought new energy, and he's connected with the community around us, particularly the Latino community in the neighborhood next door. And now we have more families coming, and on Easter Sunday we had 75 people in worship, and it was so good. And I credit Pastor Christian Kuhn, our executive pastor, for his vision, and I credit the Northern Illinois Conference for trusting and believing in Urban Village Church. But that's a story of renewal and mission, and the focus that I want to leave with you is if the benefit plan is made more sustainable and more affordable, while we listen to make sure it's equitable and adequate, it can release more resources for ministries like Urban Village Church to reach their communities and make a difference in the world. And that's what we want to do at Wespath, is support this church as best we can because we're part of it. And I thank you for your time today, and God bless you the rest of this conference.